My name is Alex. I live alone in a small, stubborn house with a 6-foot wooden fence around the backyard and a cat named Milo, 7, who has been my roommate and therapist for the better part of a decade. Milo is not a cliche Instagram cat. He's built like a compact velociraptor with fur, smart, opinionated, and unnervingly loyal. He moved with me 3 times, watched me graduate, sat on the passenger seat when I bought my first new car, and has a very specific indignation about bad coffee. If Milo had a dating profile, it would say, must love naps and not be a drone. About 6 or 7 months ago, my next-door neighbor, Rob, decided he was going to be an aerial menace. He bought a drone, the kind that looks like it escaped from a sci-fi rom-com and needs constant attention. I don't begrudge hobbies, landscaping, guitar, spreadsheeting. But within a week of Rob getting his toy, he started flying it like he was auditioning for Worst Neighbor of the Year. He would hover directly in front of windows and grin like it was a magic trick. He'd race his drone alongside cars going down the street as if highways were his personal obstacle courses. And worst of all, he developed a hobby specifically aimed at Milo, flying that buzzing little sky swarm through the gap in the fence, diving low over Milo's head, pulling up at the last second and circling back for another pass, the way a mosquito circles a porch light. Milo, bless him, is not brave the way you think of a Labrador standing up to a vacuum cleaner. He's brave in the fragile human kind of way, fiercely attached and visibly shaken by threats. That damn drone made his back arch like someone had plugged him into a lightning socket. He'd bolt under the deck, come out and stare up at the sky with his pupils huge and unblinking, and then hide in my laundry basket for an hour. Watching that, knowing I was the reason he had to be a cat who watched his sky be violated, was a kind of small, constant grief. I asked Rob, politely at first, then in a tone that should have been obvious, to stop flying over my yard. He smirked and told me to mind my own business. The passive-aggressive flights continued. I called the police when the buzzing got meaner. They showed up, kindly asked Rob to stop hovering over my property, and then reminded me that drones are a legally fuzzy swamp unless he was doing something egregious on paper. They warned him. He made a show of complying for a weekend and then went right back to it. It escalated. There were afternoons where the drone would dart low while I was sitting with Milo on the patio, as if Rob was testing both the laws of flight and the limits of my patience. I started recording everything. My phone on the back fence, a cheap security cam aimed at the yard, because the pattern felt like harassment, and Milo's anxiety was turning into real, measurable harm. Then, late in December, the thing that had been building like static finally snapped. It was cold, clear, the kind of late afternoon light that makes everything look cruelly picturesque. Rob was at it, the drone whining like an offended bee, taunting Milo from 5 feet off the ground. Milo was having none of it this time. He'd been fed, petted, reassured, given an extra blanket, and chew toys that didn't help. The drone dove, a tight, obnoxious arc, right over Milo's head, and the animal's instincts detonated. One moment, Milo was crouched and furious. The next, he launched like a cat with a grudge. He shot forward, every muscle coiling, and leapt. Time did that funny, stretchy thing it does in the middle of chaos. The drone's propellers blurred. It tipped. Milo's paw connected with something flimsy and synthetic. There was a sharp, electrical pop and a shower of plastic confetti. The world smelled briefly of ozone and warm fur. Milo landed, wide-eyed on all fours amid a scattering of dead wires, and sat down like he had just humbled a god. The drone was a ruin. Blades snapped, a ring of shredded prop guard, guts of wires, and a circuit board poking out like an exposed heart. He had not attacked in any trained, malicious sense. He had defended his space the only way Milo can. Swift, decisive, and entirely personal. I stood there, holding my phone, and for a beat I couldn't tell if my hands were shaking from adrenaline or relief. Milo padded over to me, head butted my knee like he was saying, "There, that's handled." The sky felt suddenly quieter without that whine. I felt something like vindication and something like dread layered on top of it. Across the fence, I could hear boots on gravel. Rob's voice came through the wood. Not measured, not legal, just furious. But that was later. Right then, on that cold December afternoon, Milo sat amid the wreckage like a tiny, unrepentant hero. And the drone that had turned our lives into a buzzing nightmare was nothing more than a pile of plastic and regret. Rob was incandescent. He stormed up my steps, yelling a string of threats that sounded like something cobbled together from reality TV and bad temper. I didn't rise to it. Milo rubbed against my ankle like a tiny, furry legal counsel, unimpressed but supportive. A week later, the universe served me a summons. Rob was taking me to small claims for $900 for the drone and another $300 for denying him access to his property because the wreck sat in my yard for a couple hours before it was collected. No, absolutely not. He could have killed Milo. I don't have kids or a partner. Milo is the closest thing I have to family. Milo has been with me for 7 years, moved houses 3 times, attended graduations, rode shotgun for the first new car, and quietly judged every terrible haircut I ever got. That factored into everything I did next. I wasn't going to let someone make threats and then try to invoice me for their recklessness. So I prepared. I did the thing that sounds boring but wins fights. I documented. Dozens of photos of my backyard layout showing the fence height and the only possible flight paths. Time-stamped videos of Rob buzzing Milo in the past. Dated messages where I asked him to stop. And every vet receipt, every itemized line that showed Milo's anxiety had become a billable injury. $700 for an x-ray because Milo had to be sedated to get any imaging done without turning into a tiny space tiger. $250 for the sedation itself. $400 for a full dental exam and repairs. Cats' mouths can be a mess under stress. Add anti-anxiety meds, a second checkup, specialty wet food, and the little things that add up when the animal who keeps your whole dumb life emotionally afloat is shaken. I filed copies with the court and brought the originals. Court was compact and theatrical in a very small claims way. Rob tried the narrative of the century, that I'd somehow trained Milo to attack his drone, that I'd denied him property, that he was simply an innocent hobbyist whose sky toy met an unfortunate mechanical fate. The judge listened like someone reviewing both a bad sitcom episode and an insurance claim. When Rob said I'd trained Milo, the judge actually laughed, the kind of laugh that makes smug people remember they are not protected by arrogance. Then I presented evidence. The photos showed the fence and the only realistic entry point. Rob had to deliberately fly close to the house to get the angles he was getting. The videos showed a pattern. Repeated, targeted flights right over Milo's head. The vet bills were literal, numbered proof of harm. Milo's demeanor, which I had captured on camera, told its own story. Avoidance, hiding, then a slow recovery after medications. The judge did what judges do when one side brings receipts. The claims evaporated. Short version, Rob's $1,200 claim got dismissed. The judge awarded me damages. The vet bills, court costs, and a modest extra for Milo's emotional suffering. The judge called it distress to a companion animal in a way that made me grin. In the end, Rob walked out of that room owing me almost $2,000. It was not poetic so much as legally tidy. Liability turned back where it belonged. There was more. Once the case was on paper, someone tipped off the FAA about Rob's operating behavior. Turns out the drone wasn't registered, a basic mandatory step. And several potential infractions surfaced. Flying too close to people and property, keeping the aircraft out of operator line of sight, and operating in a way that violated published safety rules. That prompted a separate set of inquiries that Rob did not enjoy, and which made him considerably less keen on aerial extracurriculars. The man who once enjoyed buzzing the neighborhood like a tiny, entitled thundercloud suddenly developed an allergy to drones. The best part, the quiet, human, genuinely sweet part, was Milo. After court, we gave him a week of special wet food, the anxiety meds did their steady job, and he recovered. He still flinches if a grocery store drone passes the TV, but mostly he patrols the yard like a benevolent tyrant who's reclaimed his domain. He nudges my hand, sits on my paperwork when I try to look important, and basks in the patio sun with the sort of smugness that requires zero apology. There's a moral here that I won't bludgeon. Care for the little loyalties in your life, because they will fight for you in the ways they can. Also, if you're going to be the sort of person who launches tech at other people's pets, be prepared for paperwork and for pets who have opinions. Milo didn't set out to be a legal strategist. He just defended his patch. The rest, the court, the FAA inquiries, the reimbursement, was paperwork catching up to common sense. We got our quiet back. Milo got a new favorite blanket. Rob got invoices and a stern set of phone calls. Justice didn't need to be theatrical to feel complete. It just needed to be true.